Hello, everyone. Craig DeLuz here, the host of The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news with conservative views. I'm coming at you from the left coast, California, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as you all know, I do not do this program by myself.
That's right, Craig. I help you do it from the East Coast, from Florida, from the hurricane-ravaged state of Florida. I am a survivor. My name is Mike Piwowarski.
So, what's the name of this hurricane that you guys are dealing with?
This is. How could somebody name a hurricane Elsa? I mean, when you hear Elsa's coming, I mean, listen. If you've seen any Disney movies, you think that there's a giant ice storm coming for you. If you haven't, you think there's a big cow with milk coming at you. You know, so
Do you want to build a snowman?
We got a giant ice storm heading for us. Listen, Craig, I'm at the point now, I've lived here so long where unless it's like a Category 4 hurricane and the eye is going to pass over my house, I don't even move the lawn furniture. I don't even care.
You figure it's just I'll just, someone else obviously needs it, so it'll land wherever it's needed, right?
I have had Cat 3 storms hit the house here, and all I can remember thinking is, man, I'm going to have to pick that up later. It knocked over a chair. Damn thing. So crazy.
Well, we're actually doing fine here. Although today's supposed to be the start of another mini heat wave, over 108, so 105. But as long as I'm as long as I'm working like in an air conditioned office and studio, I happen to, it doesn't really affect me too much.
All good in the hood, right? As long as you're taken care of, that's how you do it.
Exactly. There's a reason why I don't work outside, and that's the reason why.
Yeah, that's a very good reason. Yeah. Listen, you guys are about to get that desert heat nonsense, followed by your wildfires, then the mudslides and all that. So you can keep it. At least we know when a hurricane's coming.
At least you know when the hurricane is coming, right?
Yep,
well, we know when the heat wave's coming, and
but you don't know when it's going to end.
I always say this, it's always challenging when you live in a place where a natural disaster has a season.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And then you'll get those, like I said, you'll get followed up with those mudslides. And we get rains here too, and we get more rains than you do. You know why we don't get mudslides here in Florida?
Why?
It's flat. The mud don't slide anywhere. It just sits there. It's just mud.
It's just mud.
Sliding. We just get mud.
We don't have mudslides. We just have mud.
Yeah, we just get mud.
Do you guys have quicksand out there or quick mud?
I mean, it's just like regular mud. I know it's just, and there's is there quicksand? I'm sure we've got some springs somewhere. There's probably some quicksand somewhere, but the recent commercials have said it's more of slow sand than quicksand.
Yeah, but see, you guys have the all entertaining natural disaster, which is Florida Man.
Yeah, we have Florida Man. We do, and you have the international fall guy himself, Governor Newsom. So,
Gavin Mussolini. Yes. By the way, the other day we referred to California. California is the home of fruits and nuts.
Yes, it's the home of fruits and nuts.
That there be where we be. That there be who we is.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, let's get into today's news stories, shall we?
We shall.
So now you guys all know that, the wacky tobacco is now legal for recreational use here in the state of California. Now, the odd part about it is that recently there was a big, huge bust. The sheriff of Los Angeles County actually was involved in an investigation and an arrest. They wound up netting about $1.19 million worth of the wacky tobacco. Once again, billion with a B.
Billion with a B.
Now, Mikey, I'm just wondering. This is the thing that gets me, and you're in law enforcement, so you kind of get this. Why do you arrest someone for something that is legal?
Well, you see, I saw this story and I thought, wait a second, isn't marijuana legal in California? And then I read the story and I realized that California is now the pushy cartel drug dealer, the biggest one in the state, and refuses to allow other drug dealers to participate in their state with them. This is literally the California cartel telling the Mexican cartel they can't, produce this. Now, Craig, this story sounds like they took, how was it? Let me see here. It was 16 tons of marijuana. Like they took 16 tons of marijuana and they brought it up under the border and through trucks and they smuggled it into the country. No, these were in open air, factories, where they were making. Well, that's factories, I guess. Where they were growing the marijuana. I mean, under all sorts of regulations and rules, and they were doing everything properly. But California said, no, we're the only drug dealer on the block now, so all of you others are going to jail. They made 22 felony arrests, 109 misdemeanor arrests. Craig, they arrested 19 people for water theft. 375,000 plants were seized. 65 vehicles were seized, and 180 animals were seized. First off, I want to know what the animals are doing at the marijuana dispensaries or facilities where they make them, but that's a different story, I guess. Just dogs walking around.
They were smoking weed, man.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
What else were they doing?
All I can picture is like Scooby and Scrappy sitting around going,
eating Scooby snacks.
Yeah, that's it. Eating Scooby snacks,
Zoinkies! It's the coppers.
Yikes! This is the craziest story I ever heard. This. I remember marijuana was supposed to legalize and bring a peace and drugs and harmony and everything else to California. But now all of a sudden we got more arrests than we ever have because Big Brother Cartel California says we're the only drug dealer on the block.
Well, Mike, the interesting thing about all of this is that, once again, they said it was going to cut crime, and it hasn't. In fact, in particular in California, because marijuana is not still federally illegal, it's unbanked, which means that you have not only people who are breaking into these, not just the dispensaries, but the farms, stealing marijuana, but they're also stealing cash because these are cash-heavy businesses. And they're putting these businesses, dude. We have that's the one downside in the city of Sacramento. We have not in the city, in just our one small community in the city of Sacramento. We're in one of the northernmost parts, one of the areas that still have both land and warehouse buildings. Right. And there's like 27 of them within like a 5 square mile area, just right around my house. I mean, if I'm looking for the wacky tobacco, I can hop on my bike and be there in a few minutes. But so they're putting these businesses in near residential areas, near schools, and the other thing that they're doing is these businesses are coming in. They're chasing out businesses that actually have employees, businesses that have been there, because they can afford to pay more in rent. They're taking up warehouse space, and they're not hiring people from the community because, they have this big, huge warehouse and, no real employees. So they're they're pushing out real employers, and they're just coming. And by the way, our community doesn't see any extra of this money. Nope. It has been a sham from the very beginning. Is my overall point, and this just puts a real big exclamation point on just how bad it is.
Well, listen, it's only in the blue states. They do this,
right.
It's the socially acceptable thing to do. They keep the money. The states keep the money. They keep the tax. They keep the profit, if there is any profit. And now, like you said, what's the bill, Craig, by the way, for going out and seizing 16 tons and 22 felonies and 109 misdemeanors? That costs money too. Guess what, folks? That comes right out of your budget as well. Anything you think you might have made this year, you just lost.
At this point, they might as well sell it to cover the cost.
Oh, listen,
it is legal.
They're going to, and that's what makes this hypocrisy. Right? It's just a giant hypocrisy. Is that they seized 16 tons. They're going to sell that stuff. This was grown in dispensaries and farms and grow houses right there in California, well regulated and well maintained, and they just went and took it. They just offed another drug dealer and took his stuff. Is what they did.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Welcome
and then
to
we're going to put them in their jails too. Exactly right. And now you got 180 stoned animals wandering the streets.
Okay, enough with the stoned animals. Moving right along. All right, so you guys have heard us talk. We've talked a lot about the law in Georgia, about the new voting law. The racist one, the Jim Crow voting laws there in the state of Georgia. A federal judge. By the way, you guys also recall that right around last week, another judge basically upheld or refused to throw out voting law changes there in Arizona, which I believe was a precursor I believe that was a big telling point as to what was going to happen in this particular case. Well, you have a judge who decided that he was not going to throw out portions of the Georgia law. Now, there's a special election coming up, Mike, there in Georgia. And so the people there in Georgia were asking that at least parts of the new Georgia law be thrown out before, you even have a hearing, or at least there be an injunction or something. And the judge basically said, take a hike.
Yeah, and another case last week was Supreme Court said to Arizona, no, your laws are not unconstitutional. So that pretty much sets the precedent for around the country. Well, Georgia had, I guess, one or two other little tiny things that were different because of this special election. It came before Judge J.P. Boulay there in Georgia, a Trump appointee. And he said, no. Even if you did have a point, it's too late in the process to do anything because the election, these processes are already in motion for the upcoming election.
Well, and ultimately, what people were complaining, or people are going to be complaining about, is the fact that in the 2020 election, that in many states, in many areas, the rules were changed in the middle of the game. The election was already up and running; it was already moving forward.
Yep.
And you had, in some cases, non-elected officials, and in some cases, elected officials who are not members of the legislative branch, who are supposed to make laws relating to elections, actually just flat out change the rules. And, yesterday I actually took some time and watched the hearing that Senator Ross Johnson did on election integrity. And, I have to tell you, my takeaway from watching it and watching all the testimony was largely this. It was that there was not substantive enough evidence, at least in the eyes of many in the courts, that the election was actually, that there was actual fraud and that the election was stolen. But there was plenty enough evidence that there were problems with that there were problems with the election, that the election integrity was in question. Even the folks who said that the election was not it was not fraudulent, even they had to say, well, that was largely based on who was running the elections and based on some of the cyber stuff, as opposed to the actual problems. They didn't say anything related to problems with the election. I'm like, you had at least 3 different people who testified to hundreds of thousands of problems with ballots. And the problem was, I think the Trump folks were saying the election should be overturned because there's problems with these ballots. And the courts basically were saying, well, unless you can prove that someone actually stole votes, that it went from this person to this person, then we're not going to overturn the election. So to say that it was unfounded, that they were baseless, the accusations or the things were baseless, was a bunch of hooey. And I think we're going to start to see that more and more as information comes out.
Yeah, and Craig, I think that listen, I've said it here many times, that this fraud occurred. Listen, for 20 years we saw the Democrats exploring fraud since Gore Bush. We saw people in Florida do it. We saw counties get stolen away. We saw elections be stolen. We saw people get relieved of their duties for it. We saw boxes of ballots. We saw everything going on across the country, and this is what they slowly did and put in place, and finally were able to enact it during Trump's reelection, because every election was coming down to minute percentages, and they knew if they could just steal away a little bit, they could, and they did, and that's what happened. And as far as these judges not understanding it, Craig, listen, it reminded me of when Zuckerberg went to Congress and tried to explain to them what Facebook was. They're just sitting there like, what? And that's, I think, what a lot of the judges did this time, whether they did it because they literally didn't understand what happened or because the decision had been made. I don't feel like being the one that starts a revolution, an actual fighting revolution.
I have to be honest with you, man. I saw problems. I definitely saw problems with the election. Right. I didn't see, in everything that I've seen, I haven't seen the specific tie to, okay, so this is what I saw was, this is how they could have done it. There's a problem with the election, and this is how they could have done it. What I didn't see was, okay, here's the evidence in what exactly they did. And I just don't see judges overturning I don't see judges overturning an election without that very specific piece.
And I don't know how much more evidence I need to see than 3 suitcases worth of ballots being pulled out from under tables after everybody else was locked out and run through the machines for hours and
Well,
hours and hours over
but
and over again. You know?
Mike, that's what you're making is not half of what you just said is an assumption of what it is. You're assuming what it is. You're
You're right,
assuming
Greg.
that they're stuffing ballots. There's a lot of
quite
stuff that we
possible
don't.
they
There's
might
a
have
lot
been-
of stuff that we don't know.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is
Sure.
that I want to see more of that information. I want to see all of that
Well-
played out. The worst part about the whole thing was, I think if the folks had said, look, we just need to put a delay on certifying the result. We need to investigate all of this, because in many cases, in many of these court cases, they were given less than a month to actually put together the evidence and bring it forward. The worst part about what the judges did was, it wasn't so much, it was that they basically said, we don't even want to hear it. And that's the problem. It was all based on technicalities. I'm not saying that what you're saying didn't happen. I'm saying that there wasn't enough time for them to put together the evidence necessary to prove that you have
Well, and that's Craig.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying though. Is
Right.
when you go to a judge to get an injunction or something done, you're not going there and expecting to present your findings based beyond a reasonable doubt. You're going there with preponderance of the evidence. That's what you want him to do, is to call a pause, call a halt until it can be examined further, and then we can take it to a higher standard.
One
If
of
you
the
really
things-
believe
yeah.
that they were copying Domino's menus overnight at the Georgia Elections Bureau, I'm sorry, bro, we don't see that eye to eye. You've got to make an assumption at some point based on your
Right.
level of education.
But at a
and
certain
experience.
but at a certain point, one of the things I think we need to take a look at is we shouldn't have the general election so close to the when the election is actually supposed to be certified, because the problem is once again, when you have problems like this, you don't really have enough time to actually put everything together and really do the sorts of investigations that you need to do. Now I realize
I think we
90%
have
of the
enough
time you
time.
don't
We
need
just
it.
have too many roadblocks that could be put in the way.
Well, exactly. I think that was a big part of it. But like I said, I still, even when I've watched it on OAN, I've watched it on Newsmax, I've read, I still haven't seen the smoking gun. And I've been looking for the smoking gun. I've been asking for the smoking gun. I see, here's a gun.
I don't need a smoking gun.
Here's
I've got a dead candidate. I don't need a smoking gun. At some point, I don't need all of the
at a
evidence,
certain
Greg.
point though, you got to prove that A led to C. At a certain
right,
point, you have to make the roadmap, and
But you
quite
know,
frankly,
A leads to C. Let's put the halt on it, and then we'll prove B, and
Right.
when we have the time.
right?
You know,
Don't
you
disagree,
can't-
but
you can't-
but when
can't
you
go
but
to a
when you
judge-
but Mike, the problem is that's not what they were asking. What Trump's attorneys were asking was, they were saying A led to C, and this is all the evidence that we're gonna. This is evidence enough. And I just think, honestly, I think a lot of it led to, Trump's attorneys were not very good.
Listen, I think it's I think what you had on the other end was people that didn't want to be involved in the process. You get your reasonable suspicion, which is followed by probable cause. Probable cause gives you preponderance of evidence. Then you get clear and convincing evidence. Then you go beyond a reasonable doubt. This level of what they were doing is taking it to the judge and going, Your
Right.
Honor, listen, it's not even reasonable suspicion. We got probable cause here. We believe there's a preponderance of the evidence. This has gone on. We'd like you to put a halt to it. And I think those judges sat back and said, I'm not going to be the one that's known for starting the fighting war.
I don't disagree with you. I will just say that I think that there's a legitimate enough argument to say that they didn't see that there was enough evidence, that there was a preponderance of the evidence. You disagree? I think there should have been more of an investigation.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, needless to say that that in these particular cases, these judges are basically saying that the laws that have been put in place in order to prevent these hijinks from happening in future elections, so far judges are saying they're not willing to overturn these new voter elections.
And that's how these judges are able to sleep with themselves for not having stopped it when they had the opportunity before. Now they get to say, oh, well, we made sure it won't happen again.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think I still put the blame on the attorneys. I still believe they basically presented a shitty case, and they should have done better.
I don't think they would ever take Trump's attorney seriously, but that's because you had people suffering from TDS and anti-Trump, and that was it. It was just it was decided before it started, so that was all there is to it.
Okay, you can believe that. I don't.
Well, I like the truth, so I'm going to stick with it.
I will say this, and it reminds me of a book by Hugh Hewitt. If it's not close, they can't cheat. And the fact that it was close, I blame
Yeah.
on us.
Yeah. Well, that's the
Mm-hmm.
nation, right? We're
Yeah.
divided 49-49 every day.
Yeah. Got to work on that. Got to work on that. Got to help open the eyes of the folks. And that's the reason why, by the way, we do the rundown.
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. Here on the rundown.
Yeah, on the rundown. Okay, moving right along. Black Lives Matter Utah has basically said that the American flag, their Utah chapter called the American flag a symbol of hatred. And every time, basically what the person said was every time they see the American flag flying, they know that that person is a racist. Wow, I thought, I fly the American flag. I thought black people couldn't be racists.
Well, Craig, you're a black flag flying racist, I guess, is what she's saying.
A black flag flying racist?
It's her name's Lex Scott. She's the leader of the BLM there in Utah, and she clearly said, yeah, if I see somebody flying an American flag, we stay away from them because we know what they're about. They're racist. We don't go near it. That flag is all about racism and white supremacy and everything else. That was just absolutely wrong. I stood there and said, how can the news media put a microphone in front of this person? How do they let this person have any airtime at all with this ridiculous statements? And well, you know what? If they want a top news story, they want to create controversy because that's what our media is doing. They're doing the best they can to help the divide.
Well, first of all, I'm like, why is this lady living in Utah of all places?
Yeah, I didn't know there were any black people actually living in Utah. I didn't know that. Yeah.
I mean, if that's really how you feel, Utah's probably not the state for you. I don't know if maybe she grew up there. I don't know, but that's probably not the best state for you in general. It is amazing, and it's kind of funny because even when you read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, it's kind of funny because even he says this sort of stuff is the absolute positive worst way to try and get things done.
Yeah.
Because by denigrating the very simple, because the reality is the American flag represents the freedom for her to be able to go on national TV and to be able to say that sort of stuff. Because you can't do that in China. You can't do that in Russia. There are not many countries, world powers, where you could actually go on the national media and say stuff like that and talk bad about your government, talk bad about your leaders, and not wind up in a gulag or in a prison camp somewhere, or just dead.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. End up, Hillary Clinton. Just you talked wrong about her, so you're down.
Right.
Hey,
you wind up committing suicide.
That's right. You wind up being the dead president of Haiti. Whoa, what happened? What? Oh, we're going to talk about that earthquake money again? Oh, sorry. No, I guess not if I'm dead.
But that's what's so odd. It's like you denigrate the very symbol that allows you to do that allows you to sit there and denigrate it.
Well, we talked about it the other day, Craig, right? Remember the first name, the first war casualty, the first firearm gun casualty of the British Army in the American Revolution, Crispus Attucks.
Yep.
All right, as a black man, listen, he was standing up for the flag before the flag was even a thing,
Right.
And yet, now all of a sudden, that flag, that symbol is hate and bigotry and racism. So, sure, maybe against the British, I don't know.
Right. But that's how Marxism works, isn't it? It's like let's get rid of all the flag. I mean, let's get rid of all the symbols. Let's get rid of all the history.
Yep.
Like I said, I was watching a great. If you have Amazon Prime, you got to watch Man in the High Castle.
Okay.
It's a very interesting when you watch how it's a show where, like, an alternate history where the Japanese and where the Axis countries won World War II, and so you had the Nazi propaganda machine basically running half the United States.
Right.
And it was amazing watching them as they rewrote history and undermined their just really sought to change history by wiping away history, by change people's minds and their thought processes, by controlling the media, by controlling the narrative of every little thing. And it's sad because we're starting to see that happen here in the United States today.
Control the media, control the masses, control the masses. Excuse me, control the media, control the message, control the message, control the masses.
Yep. It is scary. And by the way, talking about that, there's a new documentary that's going to be coming out. And I want you guys to see the trailer for this, and we'll talk about it. Just go ahead and watch it real quick, and we'll talk about the trailer on the flip side. You're going to find this you're going to find it interesting, and Mikey and I will point out a few flaws in this particular trailer when we get to the flip side. So check it out.
A vigilante and his gun brought terror this past weekend.
Jordan Davis was shot and killed here.
A heartbreaking day in Florida, and sadly an all too familiar one.
You are responsible! You are responsible!
What does this say about us? We're just willing to let people die because we're afraid of the NRA?
Anybody that thinks the NRA is going to disappear has got another thing coming.
The NRA wants you to believe a fantasy about our founding. There should be no regulation of firearms. That couldn't be further from the truth.
There were literally thousands of gun laws.
Who could own a weapon and who couldn't? You had to register your weapons. It is absolutely clear that our founding fathers loved gun control.
You're up against people that are just going to say whatever they need to say in order to get what they want.
They have not only rewritten the history of the United States, they've rewritten the history of their own organization.
NRA was a positive force in American life for a very long time. But it transformed into something entirely different.
You're saying that is a liberty at the expense of 25,000 lives.
Those things are worth all the lives you will ever pay for.
My son was murdered because they were arguing about loud music. There has to be some common sense in our gun laws.
If all our government can do is send thoughts and prayers, then it's time for victims to be the change that we need to see.
Gun violence should be treated like an epidemic.
The NRA believes that deaths of innocent people is a necessary price to pay to exercise their freedom. It's a very high price.
A vigilante and his gun brought terror this past weekend.
Jordan Davis was shot and killed here.
A heartbreaking day.
Sorry about that, Mikey. For some reason I had it on loop. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this one. So first of all, there were a number of lies that were in here. Now I'll let you go ahead and start off, and I'll mop clean up. So just point out a couple of the lies that you saw, both in the article, but also as well as in the trailer there.
This is one of the stars of this thing is Fred Gutenberg. He's one of the parents from the Parkland shooting down in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High. Lost his daughter Jamie down there, and that's a horrible thing, and nobody should ever have to experience that. But it's not the gun that killed the children. It was your president, it was your FBI, it was your local sheriff that allowed this to occur in your school. And then you chose to allow your children to go to a public school in a corrupt government where you knew what was going on with their sheriff's office. And now you want to come out and tell that lie, followed by the other lies where you say there's been gun control since day one. We've had gun control where you couldn't vote certain places. We had gun control where you couldn't take guns into towns back in the 1700s and the 1800s. And those were every one of them, Craig, declared to be unconstitutional, but they don't say that in this story. And Craig, do you know why those laws were passed way back when?
Oh, I most definitely know why they were passed. They were passed basically to keep black people, Native Americans, Mexicans, Chinese from being able to own firearms.
Yep. And here's Fred Gutenberg and his crowd again coming at you to supporting laws that did nothing but discriminate against non-whites. And yet now they're using these laws to champion their efforts. You want to know where the Klan came from? The Klan came from the Democrat Party the day of the Emancipation Proclamation was issued.
Exactly.
This is what happened. That's who Jim Crow was. That's where these gun laws came from.
Exactly. That's when you talk about black codes and you talk about Jim Crow laws, all of these laws that were passed in order to keep black people from being able to fully exercise their rights. In this particular case, we're talking about the right to keep and bear arms, and all of the laws that he's bragging about in the interview that he did, as well as in this documentary. All the laws he's talking about were all about keeping people of color from being able to own and possess firearms.
Fred, if you decide you want to send your daughter to a corrupt school, you want to go there where there's a sheriff that gets relieved, where you've got the FBI that let this guy go out and buy this firearm, you want to send your daughter there, that's fine. But how dare you? How dare you tell me that I can't protect my family, that I can't keep my family safe? Fred, you need to go find yourself a nice short pier and take that long walk off it, because we're done with you.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I get it. You're angry and you got to blame somebody. But I just tell you right now, blaming the rest of us who just want to be able to protect our families, blaming people who are taking responsibility for themselves and for their family, it's wrong-headed. And you need to and here's the worst part is that it's just because it's popular, and that's the thing. It's real popular to blame people who want to take responsibility for themselves. But maybe if different people were in charge, just maybe things could have turned out very, very differently there at the school in Florida.
You elected your corrupt government down there, Fred. Yeah. You got elections have consequences. You could deal with that.
Yeah, and sad to say that unfortunately sometimes those consequences are the loss of innocent lives. And
exactly right. Exactly right.
And that's what happened. And unfortunately, the parents and the spouses of the teachers who lost their lives, the people who are related to the people who lost their lives, they're the ones that are paying the price. And hopefully, the rest of us can learn from that lesson.
And we are. And I've learned from that lesson from years and years ago, Craig. I'm going to make sure my family and myself and my friends are defended, and that will not happen to us if I have a say in it.
Exactly. And I don't understand why. Here's the thing. If you decide that you don't want to do that, then that's on you. You've made that choice. You're going to live with those consequences. We decided in our family that we don't want that to happen to us. And so we're going to take steps to try and prevent it. And those steps are not asking the government to be there or have cops parked outside my door or put magical signs up in my neighborhood that says no gun-free zone. No, our step is we are going to make sure that we own and possess a means by which to defend ourselves, to be our own first responders, and that we know how to use them.
That's
and
right.
How to be safe with them, by the way.
Yep. F-15s and nuclear weapons. That's what I'm getting.
Exactly. Of course, to protect yourself from the government, at least from Joe Biden's government.
From Joe Biden's government.
According to him, that's what you're going to need to protect yourself from him is some F-15s and some nuclear weapons.
Some nukes. Yeah. So it's always the Democrats that want to nuke us for some reason.
The anti-nuke party wants to nuke us.
Wants to nuke us. Yeah. Craziness.
All right, so now we're going to move on to our parting shot. And, you guys remember the story we talked about at the very beginning. You had $1.9 billion worth of marijuana that was seized. Amongst those were amongst some of that not only were drugs, but there were also animals that were seized. And we were wondering, what exactly were those animals up to? Well, I think Mikey has discovered exactly what they were up to. They were doing business. They were handling their business, Mikey.
You see the bear on the California flag? Well, here he is doing a hand-to-hand in your backyard. Getting themselves a little transaction done. Craig, this is what happens when you live in the bad part of the forest, by the way. You get drug deals and they come and steal your picnic baskets.
Come and steal, hey, boo-boo. Well, you got to look at it this way, man. See, in many cases, some of these bears have lost their homes due to forest fires, and so they need a second income. They need a way in which to pay for to replace their habitat.
As far as these bears knew, this was legal, Craig. It's been legal there for 3 years. They were just trying to, make a living. That's all they were doing. Instead, they're one of the or two of the 180 bears that got rounded up in this cartel squashing organization that the California government has become.
So is that what it's come down to now? The Mexican cartel is now hiring bears?
Listen, I got so many bear analogies I could throw out right now. I'm just not even going to. But I'm just saying yes. How about yes is a good answer.
How about yes? Okay. Yes works. Yeah, I'll take yes. I'll take yes every single friggin' time. All right, hey Mikey, tomorrow, Freedback Friday. You want to let the folks know what they can win?
They can win a lower parts kit, which will go to America's Rifle. This is you can see some of the parts in here. This is from our good friends at GorillaMachining.com. That's GorillaMachining.com. Along with that, you're going to get yourself a T-shirt. I don't know the size. I do know it's It's sealed, so it won't be pre-worn. If you want to hit pause for a moment and take a look at this, you could scan that. Okay, now that you're back from pause, I'm going to bring it down, so that's good. And Craig, we also got some other news from Gorilla Machining yesterday. We should have some good news coming up soon in the next couple of days, I think.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan. We are looking forward to being able to announce that good news from Gorilla Machining. Make sure you visit them. A link to their website is, well, if you scan to that thing, it'll take you to their website. Also, a link to is in the description of this video. But want to encourage you, visit them, visit Grid Defense, visit the California Republican Assembly, visit all of our sponsors. And by the way, just so you guys know, this show is put together by both Arms Room Radio and 2A News. So make sure you, once again, visit our sponsors, visit those folks who help make sure this program goes, and let them know how much you appreciate the rundown. And like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you, at noon tomorrow. Make sure you're on the Facebook page, right, Craig?
Right.
Our
the Rundown Facebook page or YouTube channel.
Or YouTube channel, in order to take part in the Feedback Friday, we will be giving you these lovely gifts and a year's supply of turtle wax from Gorilla Machining.
All right, folks. We'll talk to you later.